The first question, and that's the title of my talk, is will AI work for us or will replace us? Who says that AI will work for us? Who says that will replace us? Excellent. So in the next 39 minutes and 10 seconds, I'm gonna try to say that that question that you find on the screen, you try to answer very kindly, it's the wrong question. So the problem is that a better question is that, and the big danger here for AI and jobs is to be unprepared. No much whether we're gonna be replaced, whether we're not gonna be replaced, are we prepared or not? That's a far better question. And I'm gonna show you why. Okay, without planning, as we know in our lives, when we plan lives and events, we are unprepared, so we need to plan. And now I can already read in your eyes and asking me, well, what do you exactly mean by being prepared or unprepared for AI and work? Well, I would say that it's a very practical question. Questions like, can we avoid productivity loss, right, in the job market once we introduce AI? Can we avoid the social backslash once we introduce AI and people will feel that we've taken their jobs from them? Can we guide workforce planning? Can we actually say, okay, maybe we're gonna redefine some of this work and we plan for the future? Can we do that? Can we shape funding? We are a research institution, we have foundations, universities, private sector actors. Can we actually funnel some money towards a good AI future? The answer is obviously to all these questions is yes, and that's what I mean by being prepared. But then the big question is, how do we possibly do that? Always, when you ask a difficult question, ask yourself, how? And that's actually the interesting part of it. And to go there, let's say that I'm gonna tell you a story. And the story is that last month, we went to Tokyo, and in Tokyo there was the main human-computer interaction conference. Imagine it's called CHI, was CHI 2025, 5,000 people in Tokyo, from all over the world, discussing one simple thing, how humans are going to interact with machines. And in particular, how humans are going to interact with AI. 5,000 scientists discussing just that. And now, in that conference, we actually presented a work that is called The Hall of AI Fears and Hopes.
What do you think about AI? Researchers ask this question all the time, through surveys and forms filled with boxes and blanks, as if your thoughts could be simply measured in check marks. But surveys fall short. They're dry. They don't listen. They forget you're human. So, we built something different, the Hall of AI Fears and Hopes, a platform not for ticking boxes, but for thinking deeply, feeling freely, and finding your own voice in the great conversation about AI. On the Hall of AI Fears and Hopes, you will take 5 steps. First, we begin not with answers, but with you. No textbook definitions. Instead, you tell us what is AI in your own words. Second, we ask, what stirs your fear? What sparks your hope? Third, you step into a gallery of minds. 100 portraits of AI influencers, academics, billionaires, tech leaders. You walk through their fears and dreams. Some will echo your thoughts. Others may challenge or even provoke you. Fourth, we ask what matters to you. If you could fund the future, where would your budget go? Which visions would you nourish? Which warnings would you heed? Fifth, at the end of the journey, you meet your match. 3 AI influencers who reflect your perspective, your concerns, your hopes. Familiar faces who might just help you see yourself and the future more clearly. So, what did we learn from the 330 people representing the U.S. general public who used the platform? We learned that the public who lives with AI's consequences is not always in step with our influencers. 3 currents pull this divide wide: generation, power, geography. Generation. Call AI smart, and chances are you are young. Call it human-like, and you're likely older. Yet when it comes to echoing the U.S. general public's voice, it is the younger influencers who strike the truest chord. The most out of tune? Older influencers. Power. Influencers in academia, far from billionaire circles, resonated most with the public pulse. But the tech leaders, where wealth concentrates and decisions crystallize, stood far apart. Geography. As one expects, influencers far from Silicon Valley, those who likely use AI rather than supply it, mirrored public views most closely. Influencers within the valley were more distant, designing tools for lives they do not lead. Because the Hall of AI Fears and Hopes helped the general public really think about AI, not just what it does, but how it affects their lives. For some, it raised fears, especially if they didn't know much about AI. It can feel overwhelming when you don't understand how it works. But for others, it sparked hope. Developers and designers saw new ways to build better tools. Leaders started rethinking how AI should be used in schools and hospitals. And the public began to imagine AI that actually fits what people need. So, what do you think about AI? Visit AI Fears and Hopes and share your thoughts.
Excellent. So this was a project just to see what people think about AI, people on the street, normal people, representative of the US population, and who was aligned with the general public and who was not aligned. Older influencer, people who actually C-level people in companies that take the decisions actually are most misaligned with the general public. So the people who are building the technology actually are quite misaligned with the people who actually use the technology. And that's kind of a problem that we can solve, but is a problem out there. But also, what did we learn in terms of hopes and fears? Well, we learned one simple thing, that hope and fears are 2 sides of the same coin. And what I mean by that is that if you look at some people, they would fear that AI will take their jobs. So they would fear unemployment because of AI. Makes sense, we are here to discuss that. But other people, actually, they will hope that AI will give them a different job, a job that is more creative, a new job. So some people fear that AI will result in misinformation, as we know. But other people actually think, oh, AI can give me access to information I didn't have before. Some people will think, oh my God, I'm going to use AI, so I'm going to become dumb, right? So I'm not going to be as creative as before. Other people think, wow, I can do with ChatGPT something I couldn't do before. So as you can see, whether we're talking about employments, whether we're talking about information, whether we're talking about innovative thinking, there are 2 sides of the very same coin. And that are the hopes and fears of people about AI. So clearly, this event is about work, and one of the central questions in people's minds, as we saw, whether they're thinking about hopes and fears, is what is going to happen to my job? And, that's a tension that is not a new tension. A lot of people warned us about the future of our job. For example, Elon Musk warned us not only that we might be losing our job, but there will be mass unemployment. So did Barack Obama back in office. He actually mentioned the impact of AI on jobs. But the real truth is that there is a big lie in all this kind of discussion. And the big lie is that AI impacts jobs, it's a lie. It's inaccurate. AI impacts job tasks, and that is a radically different thing. And I will tell you why in a couple of minutes. So to actually distinguish this kind of difference and the impact that jobs and job tasks will have, we wrote an article that you find online that is titled "The Potential Impact of AI Innovations on US Occupations." In there, we actually did the following. We took all the jobs in US by the Census Bureau and the labor statistics, and we took all the job tasks, right? So each job, our jobs, has got tasks. We took all those tasks. There were 18,000 tasks. And what did we do to measure the impact on AI of each task? We matched them with AI patents. So we took all the AI patents granted in US, and we said, is this task I do in my job, writing reports, is going to be impacted by an AI patent? If yes, might be likely to be automated. If not, maybe nobody's thinking about automating it. Okay, so basically what we did is we matched 18,000 job tasks with 15,000 AI patents. And obviously, we didn't do that by hand, but we did that automatically. And we built a score that is called AI Impact. Okay, just to give you an example, that's a cardiovascular technology task, a real one, which is observe gauges, recorder, and video screens during imaging of cardiovascular system. Basically, observe imaging systems, right, during an assessment, or cardiovascular assessment. So that task was matched by the closest patent, which is automated analysis of vasculature in coronary angiograms. Now, I cannot even pronounce those words, but the idea, and that's a surprising bit, you might say, there are no common words, right, between the task and the AI patents. How is it possible to know that the meanings is actually that one, right? They are similar in meaning. Well, thanks God, in the last few years, we have new deep learning models, machine learning models that work totally differently than previous models that would match the words. Now, in this case, we can actually project words into a massive multidimensional space, into the meaning space. So now all of a sudden we don't need the words that match to each other, but the machine will understand the meaning behind the words. Just to give you an example, if a man to a king, the machine would know a woman is to a queen. Right? So now, those words have nothing to do with each other, but in terms of meaning, as humans, we understand they are related to each other. There is an analogy there. That's what algorithms do, and that's the algorithm we use to match the task and the patterns. Now, what are the results? The results is that, let's start simple. The least impacted jobs will be either manual workers or interpersonal jobs. Right? So if you have a manual job like a plumber, you keep that job. Why? Well, because either an AI system like a robot is not able to do that job because it requires a high level of manual dexterity, or because it's too expensive to actually have a robot, of $1 million robot, changing your pipes. Right? So the other thing is that interpersonal jobs, like, for example, caring jobs, cannot be fully replaced by AI, and they will still be there, but do require soft skills that humans have. Not surprised there. And, as it was mentioned before, there will be sectors that will be impacted quite a lot, and jobs in particular. Healthcare technicians, they do a lot of the technical work in healthcare, they might be impacted quite massively. Also coders, as we heard before, they might be impacted with co-pilot, so they need to redefine their jobs, and also air controllers. So those are the 3 jobs that will be impacted the most. And one might conclude that the sectors that could be more impacted are those 3: healthcare, IT, manufacturing. But I put risk in quote for a reason. Do you think they will be impacted? No, maybe. To a certain extent, Possibly. Let's go with possibly. Depends. It's the answer. Okay. So the two reasons why they might not be impacted as we think are true. Well, the two reasons are true, sure. The highest vacancy rates. Healthcare, IT, and manufacturing have the highest vacancy rates in US. So we can't find enough people to work in those sectors. So even if you introduce AI, you're not going to displace anyone because we don't find enough people anyway. Pretty simple. And the second stuff is the stuff related to the big lie that I told you before, that AI impacts job tasks. And what I mean by that, and I'm going to give you an example. Let's take the example of the orthodontist. Orthodontists have an impact score of 60%, meaning that 60% of the tasks on an orthodontist will be impacted by AI, but there are 40% of the tasks that will not be impacted. And that's what I mean by saying that AI will impact orthodontists. It doesn't make any sense. It may make more sense to say orthodontists, 60% of the tasks will be impacted, but they still keep their jobs. They just need to change it a bit. Okay, just to give you an example of tasks that will be impacted, study diagnostic records such as medical dental histories, that can be done by AI, even today. But if you go at the bottom, instruct dental officers and technical assistants in orthodontic procedures, that cannot be done by AI at the moment. So there will be tasks in every job that will be left there. We just need to understand which one are those and how we can redefine those jobs. So then you might say, okay, fine. You told me the profession at risk. You told me that the sector at risk might be at risk, but we don't find enough people. And then the second reason, there is no job that's going to be totally disappear. So it's all good. Are we happy? No round table today? Maybe not, right? And the reason for worrying is that comes from another article that we published a few weeks ago that is about AI and economic divides in US. And there we reflect a bit on how AI could widen the gap that we already have in US. And this is a real map with the AI impact score across metropolitan areas in US. And what we found is that AI is reshaping American cities, but not equally. And that is the important bit to understand. And that could be also a transferable lesson for Italy here. Big cities will be impacted. And that's kind of obvious, right? You would expect that Silicon Valley will be impacted and other big cities will be impacted, San Francisco, Seattle, New York, where you have the big tech hub, big services providers, right? They will be impacted, okay. But what is the good thing? What is the good news for big cities being impacted? What is the difference between a big city and a small town? Economically, big cities are actually resilient because of their economic complexity. As we know from the literature, back in the days, Jane Jacobs, the economy of cities diversify their economies. So they are able to shift towards sectors that are least impacted by AI. So they will be okay, right? There might be, for certain cities, a transition period, but they'll be okay because they will diversify their economies. The problem comes with mid-sized towns. The mid-sized towns are those red dots that will be impacted by AI. They're in the middle of nowhere. They are not in the coast of US, but in the middle of things. And let me give you 3 examples of cities that might be impacted by AI. Rochester, Minnesota, Columbus, Indiana, and Dalton, Georgia. Dalton, Georgia. I learned from doing this work that 75% of rugs and carpets are produced in Dalton, Georgia, in the world. So he's focused on rugs and carpets. Now, if you impact those processes, how many people in that town are going to lose their jobs? Quite a few. Columbus, Indiana, and that might resonate in this room and in Torino, is a significant hub for automotive industry. What if you focus your entire economy on the automotive industry? What is going to happen to software coders in the automotive industry? The same goes for Rochester, Minnesota, was only focused on healthcare. It's hosting the Mayo Clinic. what is going to happen to them since they are monolithically focusing only on one sector. Now, you understand the gist here. The gist is that one industry, mid-sized town, they're going to suffer because it's going to be very, very difficult to reconvert economically those communities. And even the more worrying thing that we show in the article is that some of these communities are already experiencing some problems, the problems of income inequality. So now all of a sudden we're saying in the future that they will feel the impact of AI, they're already feeling the impact of economic inequality around them in those small communities. What are we going to get? Something that I would call poorer gets poorer effect. And good luck to have and to fetch back those communities to a normal level. So, now, I've been positive at the beginning. It's an emotional journey. I've been positive, then I've been negative now, and then you might wonder, I'm confused right now, so what should we do? You promise us to tell us how we practically tackle this problem. Well, first of all, I would take the title of my talk, Will AI Work for Us or Replace Us? And I would say, that's a wrong title. So every time someone asks you that, you say, you're not understanding this problem correctly. Let me correct you. And because AI is not in the driving seat. And that's one thing that bothers me a bit of this techno-solutionism idea, that every problem has got a technical solution. I'm an engineer by training, so you know, I'm good with technology, but not every problem has got a technical solution. And it's totally fine. But we can decide, right? We can decide how AI is going to impact our jobs if we understand how AI works. As simple as that. Okay, so history offers guidance. What did we do when we had a big technical revolution from the Industrial Revolution to internet? What did we do? Well, to the internet a bit less, but we redefined our institutions and we decided where to put our money. As simple as that. And we had a big revolution, GPS, et cetera, and other stuff in healthcare. Okay, so then my proposal is very simple. We need to guide fundings where we want our future to be. Initially, there will be public funding, but then private funding, companies will follow. And the funding will be guided towards two things, two very simple things. One is economic diversification, because I show you, if you put your eggs in one basket, you're doomed to failure, to any change. You're not going to be resilient. Economists are going to tell us how they reach economic diversification. Policymakers, hopefully, will listen for the first time to economists, and they will know what to do, right, in terms of diversifying their communities. And the second thing is, the thing that we can do in this room, and I call the 2 R's, reskilling employees and rebundling jobs. So we need to think about which jobs will be impacted to a certain extent, how can we reskill people to use AI for tasks that can be done by AI, and then we need to redefine the jobs in our companies to say, okay, maybe we need a couple of people doing this, a couple of people doing that we didn't have before. So those are things that actually require practical things to do. And let me give you an example that is practical. In this article, we argue that there is an automation trap, AI jobs in the automation traps. And basically, I'm taking over my research community, so I'm making friends, the human-computer interaction community, and we are showing that AI, so patents in human-computer interaction, they're all about automation. So they all focus on automating people. The research, so papers in human-computer interaction are all about augmenting people. So there is a gap between what researchers are doing and what companies are patenting, right? So now we need to bridge that gap, and hopefully we can channel money into R&D and more R&D on augmentation rather than automation. The idea that you can automate everything is a wrong idea. You can augment many, many more tasks. So productivity might be driven on augmenting people rather than replacing them, right? We can gain a lot more money if we augment people properly rather than looking for this automation kind of saga that doesn't make any sense. University can help too. As Guido was saying, there are different approaches in Politecnico. And one example that I want to give to you is the Grandi Sfide. Grandi Sfide is basically trying to actually think about the future for within the university context with engineers. And one thing that we could do possibly is to have students actually rebundle their own jobs. I'm going to ask students, what would you like to do after graduation? You want to become an environmental engineer? Okay, let's look at which job task will be replaced by AI of your job and which are left. How can you redefine the job? How can I give you the tools to think ethically about that stuff so that in your future job, you're going to use AI, but in an ethical way. So that, for example, the jobs tasks that we are automating, they're not called bullshit tasks that we don't love to do, admin's task and this kind of stuff. It's actually a word in the literature. It's not a swear word. And then also, if we are automating tasks that actually, we are not automating tasks that give us pride, right? I do this job because I'm proud to do these things. I'm proud to do this presentation. Don't have AI doing this presentation for me because I drive my sense of identity on the job task. So to reflect on those things is very, very important for future employees, right? And we have the possibility to think about that stuff. And in conclusion, so I would like to go back to where I started. And I started with the project of the All of AI Fears and Hopes. And then let me tell you that when you feel fear, what do? Well, hopefully right now you're not feeling fear of being called out from me, but when you feel fear, you actually freeze, right? Or you run, exactly. So you freeze or you run. Well, when you have the opposite, when you have blind hopes, what do? You wait for the Uberman, or more the Nietzsche version, the Superman, right? You just wait because you have blind hopes that somebody's gonna solve your life. Okay, what I'm arguing here in this talk, instead of like blindly hoping or blindly fearing AI, we just get prepared. Right? Which basically means we try to measure the AI impact, if we can, in any sort of way, whether you're doing the way we have done on patents, whether you're doing any other way, but we try to measure something. And then we try to target, based on our measurements, work task, where do we put our money in terms of funding. Because the real danger is not AI. The real danger is staying still while everything changes around you. And when tomorrow you go back to work, don't fear AI, fear your colleague next to you that can use AI. They're gonna be workers, they're gonna suffer. Of course, they will be workers. We just need to help those sectors of workers that will suffer. But to go from there to a sort of dystopia of mass unemployment is bonkers. There was not in history a single example of technological change that led to mass unemployment. There will not be that. And, you know, tomorrow as well, when your friends will ask you, will AI replace you or will work for us, what you're going to answer, that's the wrong question. A better question is that, are we ready to lead the change? And hopefully with Guido and all his initiatives with the Biennale Tecnologia, we are not going to react to the change that is imposed to us, but we are ready to lead the change. Thank you.